Hey everyone, welcome back to Legacy Builders with Bryan Dulaney. I have had the privilege of working on over 20 different million-dollar funnels, and guess what? They all have several things in common. In this episode, I want to share with you some of the ingredients for success to those funnels. I have seen that there are several things that you have to do if you want to scale past 7 figures, and in this episode, I'm going to share with you specifically what those things are so you can scale your expertise beyond 7 figures so you can make a greater impact and a greater income in the process.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Legacy Builders with Bryan Dulaney. Bryan, today we're going to talk about a conversation that a lot of people are always having because so many people aspire to have a 7-figure business or to kind of reach this illustrious mark of $1 million. And so today we're going to talk about some of the characteristics that in your experience of building over $20 million funnels that help get people there. So when we're first starting, what's one of the first things that is like a characteristic and is important for people to be realizing as they're on their journey to their first million?
Yeah, thanks, Seth. So I think there's a lot of factors, right? But the first thing is solve a problem or a need. You know, if you think back, so I lost a $500,000 a month business partnership right simultaneously smack dab in front of like finding out the girl that I was dating was cheating on me. I had to start back at ground zero again. And I went back to my roots. And that just happened to be being an affiliate, selling other people's stuff, right? And getting paid a commission and then offering services to people who needed help with funnels. They needed help with advertising. They needed help with generating leads and generating sales. So what was their problem? Well, it was not able to generate leads and sales for their business. And that's a big problem, right? So you got to figure out what is the problem that your ideal customers are facing and how can you help solve that problem? Okay, so that's the first step, is to identify what that problem is that you specifically can solve. Okay, don't try to solve all problems. Try to solve only the problems that you have experience solving and helping to produce results in that area. The second thing I would say would be, where are they looking to solve that problem? Okay, so I want you to think about this. You know, in my case, I knew that I can run Google ads and I can get in front of people fairly easily with certain keywords where they would identify that problem and they would see my ad as an option or a solution to solving that problem. So back in 2013, when I lost that $500,000 a month business partnership, found out the girl that I was dating was cheating on me, right? My world crumbled. I went home, beat my family to kind of regroup. That's when I realized that I needed to do what I know works, which was being an affiliate and selling services in the area of my expertise that I've accumulated from 2006, right? So many years had gone by that I'd worked on that expertise. So I had confidence in my ability to solve that problem. So I found a place, I'm not going to say specifically which keywords those were, but I found keywords where I could put ads in front of my ideal audience and I could pull people towards me, right? So you've got to think about, where are those people, right? Now, generally speaking, if you look at social media as a place, right, they're on Facebook, they're on Instagram, they're on YouTube, they're on Twitter, they're on LinkedIn, they're on TikTok, they're on all these different platforms, right? So it becomes a matter of getting their attention, which really is a whole nother animal in and of itself. Right. You got to figure out where they are. And Google ads are great because people are searching in keywords, trying to solve a problem or trying to create a solution to get them out of the situation that they're in. Right.
Yeah. And I think those are super important to realize at first, is kind of these first characteristics. I think, next, we really have to have like focus on the audience. And so I want, tell me more about finding the clarity on who you serve. I know in the early days of my business, I was kind of trying to do all things to all people. You don't want to say no, you want to help everybody. So what's this next important piece to kind of being on track for your first million?
Yeah, I think this is critical. I think in the beginning of any business, right? So even me back in 2013, when I was restarting my I was restarting in a way. It was a hard reset, and it wasn't one that I was welcoming, right? It was a hard reset that, I was forced into. And so I think another key component in getting that to that, 7-figure mark and beyond is really figuring out and getting clarity on who you serve, right? It took me years to really identify that my audience is experts, people who have knowledge, skills, and expertise in an area and they have results that others want. I think that's the key component. They have results that others want. I can't tell you, I've done probably close to 500 or more private days with people, creating a roadmap to a 7 to 8 figure business. And it's interesting how many of those people don't really know with clarity and certainty who they serve. So some things to think about as you're, getting clarity on who you serve is age, right? Demographic, where are they located? Is it male, female, or both? Do they have a career, right? Or are they entrepreneur, right? Who do they follow and who already has their ear? So that's a big question that I always like to ask is who already has their attention, right? Because you can start to listen to the people that they listen to, and you can begin to, it just makes the advertising easier to get in front of that audience, right? If I know my audience follows, say, Tony Robbins, then I can also advertise to that audience who follows and who gets, wisdom and advice from Tony Robbins, right? Mm-hmm. So ask yourself this, who can I help to produce results? In my example, we run a marketing agency, right? And we serve experts who meet certain requirements. Number one is they have results in their area of expertise for themselves. So, for example, we've got a client that has a $6 million dry cleaning business with 20 locations. Or another example of a guy who was a sales trainer or a sales guy in a career making $2.4 million a year selling. And then he said, well, I want to bring it all online. Okay, great. So he has the results that others want, right? I think that's really important. Another example would be a lady who bought and sold more than 300 mobile homes, right? Who has the outcome of selling more than 300 mobile homes, right? Or another example of a $30 million a year trade school. So you want to look at, for me, this is a requirement. So I think when you're thinking about who you serve, you've got to get really crystal clear. For me, it's this component of what is their results. Number two, do they have proof of results of people they've helped? Okay. And this is preferably better. Having results for yourself is great. Okay. That's the first step. To me, that's the first step to being able to help a lot more people because you have the results, you have the outcomes, you have the experiences that other people desire. For me, it goes a little deeper than that. I look at the results that you've helped other people to experience. So for example, I've helped more than 20 people generate 7 figures, or more than 5 people generate more than 8 figures, 8 figures being 10 million plus. Okay. So that's another requirement of people that I serve and can serve deep, right? The last thing that I look for is they have a budget to do something about it. Like not afraid to spend $5,000 or $10,000 on a webinar or a challenge, or for example, they have a budget to build it right versus just throwing mud up against the wall, which is what most people do, right? Most people in my market, they observe what other people are doing and then they model it or they hack it, right? Or they copy it, which is worse. That will only get you so far. Okay. It might get you off the ground, right? But that will only get you so far. Okay?
Right. And I actually remember when I first met you, which now is like 4 years ago, you were still focused, like even then you were still focused on these 3 things. Like yep. You've kept this clarity throughout and you haven't like veered off and followed all these shiny objects.
Yeah, I think it's important because like for me, right, throughout my career, I mean, we've served local businesses, we've served e-commerce, we've served a variety of different other kind of markets or categories. And, back in 2016, it became really crystal clear for me that it's experts that I really serve. then I stopped attracting people in different categories. Now, yeah, I can help someone who has an e-commerce business, but typically it's going to be someone like Dave Asprey, right, who has expertise in the area of the e-commerce. So that he's got the combination of the two, right? And I think that's really important to just have that clarity. And sometimes, you have to be in this journey long enough to really figure it out, right? I think for me, doing this for now 17 years, you get clarity as you go along. Like, who do you enjoy working with, right? Who do you feel compelled to work with? Not just working for money. When you're not just working for money, you get to be selective, right? And that's a good thing. But that might come with time. So the fourth thing is, as it relates to scaling beyond 7 figures, right? The fourth component, I would say, is that you back the results that you can produce. Okay. So you build offers where you can back the results that you're offering. At the end of the day, people are paying for results. That's what they want. They want the outcome. They want the outcome from the evidence that you've been able to produce, right? So for example, selling more than $1 million worth of courses for Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi. That's an outcome that a lot of other people want to experience, right? And doing it in a very short period of time, like 2 weeks, right? Or helping a woman generate 10 million in 6 months, starting with no audience, no list, absolutely nothing compared to someone like Tony Robbins, right? So having those results that you're able to back up, you're able to point to, right? You're able to say, well, I've helped so-and-so, and this is the outcome that we've been able to produce. That goes so far in terms of selling. Selling becomes a lot easier when you have that in your arsenal. So you want to try to figure out, okay, what are your results for yourself that you're able to use and leverage to attract more people to you who want the similar results? And then deeper than that, it's what are the results that you're able to point to of people you've served, right? Have you been able to help them get the results you've been able to produce and potentially get them better results, right? So if you've helped, say, a handful or a dozen people produce similar or like results to what you've been able to produce, it just stacks the deck in your favor and it becomes a lot easier to sell. It becomes a lot easier to scale beyond $1 million.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah. And I think those like foundational pieces of kind of understanding, what you're selling, can you really get behind it? Can you get results for it? Like those are really essential. But then we start getting into some of these details of like the details of $1 million business and talking about lifetime value and self-liquidating. So like, what's this next step in that journey to $1 million as we kind of get more into the details of this?
Yeah. So I think for me, it's where do you self-liquidate? I think you've got to ask these questions. Where do you self-liquidate and when do you profit in your business?
And can you explain that term for maybe some of our audience that doesn't know that? So
self-liquidate is when do you pay for the cost of acquisition, right? So let's say you put $1 into advertising. When do you get that dollar back, right? Now, preferably, the way we build campaigns, we preferably want that dollar coming back on the front end. Okay, so if we have a book funnel or we have a low ticket funnel, we want to self liquidate. We want that money coming back as fast as possible. So let me give you an example. I have a book funnel, right? And that book funnel has several offers within it, but the book funnel on average has a $50 average cart value. So that means that the average person over the whole group that comes through that funnel, I'm receiving $50. Now, some people come in, they spend $9.95 because that's the cost of the book. Other people come in and they buy everything. And so that makes that average cart value be $50. So what that means for me, and what that means for you, if you have the same scenario, is I'm spending $1. When do I get that dollar back? Right? You got to know where that point is, and then where do you profit? Right? For me, I can spend $25 to acquire a book buyer because my average cart value is $50. Now, if I was only selling a book that was $9.95, I couldn't spend $25 to acquire a buyer because I would be upside down. Unless I have a back end and a deeper ways of serving people to offset that cost, right? You would never in a million years have a $9.95 book and not sell anything else and spend 25, 30, 40, or 50 bucks to acquire a buyer. You would go broke, right? Mm-hmm. So you need to understand, where do you break even? Okay. Where do you self-liquidate? Where do you cover the cost of your advertising? Typically, it's going to be on your front end offer. Okay. For a lot of our clients that we serve, we build it into that front end program, whether it's a $297, $497, $997, $2K or $5K offer. That's covering the cost of acquisition. And then the way that you serve them on a deeper level, whether it be coaching, consulting, workshops, masterminds, agency services, whatever it might be, that's where you're going to profit. Right. And so what I say is lifetime value matters. There's a statement that says, he who can spend more to acquire a customer wins, right? So the front end programs are really, I want you to just grasp this for a second and really understand it, because I find that a lot of people don't get this when they're trying to launch their expertise online. Your front end programs are really to self-liquidate your advertising, and then your back end offers are driven for profit. And here's the way I want to point it out, and I want to share with you my mindset on it. So I'm selling, let's say, $1,000 product. I have a $1,000 course. Okay. I put $1 into advertising to get a buyer. I'm happy if I can spend $1 and make $2. Okay. I'm not trying to spend $1 and make 10. That's ridiculous. Okay. Now, if I spend $1 and make 2, meaning I spend $500 to acquire a $1,000 buyer, in my mind, I'm crushing it, because I can scale that, right? Now I can do 10 sales a day, 20 sales a day, 50 sales a day, 100 sales a day, and so forth, right? Now, I'll give you a little bit of a deeper perspective. I'm actually okay with spending $1 to make $1. I'm totally fine spending $1 and making $1 on the front end. So meaning I'll spend $1,000 to acquire a $1,000 buyer. Now, most people aren't comfortable with that because they don't really understand the lifetime value of their back end offers. Okay. But as soon as you dial in your back end offers, the more expensive programs, the programs that you're more hands-on with your audience, right? Whether it's coaching, certification, whether it's workshop, whether it's mastermind, whether it's agency services, that's where you make the bulk of your money. And if he who can spend more to acquire a customer wins, if that's true, which it is, then if your competitor, think about this, if your competitor can only spend $500 to acquire a $1,000 buyer, but you can spend $1,000 to acquire a $1,000 buyer because you have back-end profitability, then you're going to beat your competitor every single time, right? So that's how you want to think about building out your offers. You want to think, where do I break even? Where do I self-liquidate? Where do I cover the cost of my advertising? If you can't cover your cost of your advertising, you don't have a business. You have a money pit,
right?
Right? And so all of these things matter when it comes into play of scaling beyond $1 million, right? We need to get you at a place where you're scaling beyond $1 million and having good size of that being profit, not just an expense into advertising.
Well, and I've seen so many people that they get really frustrated because they can't build their business or they can't get to $1 million. And I think it's because they don't have any back end value. They launch an ebook or like a $97 front end product, and they're expecting to scale that to, $1 million or 5 million or 10 million. And they're not understanding the difference between like front end and back end value. So I feel like a lot of people are messed up there.
I think it's a great point, Seth. So I think that a lot of people are getting bad advice from, I call them the greedy gurus, but the bad advice is like, launch an ebook and sell a low ticket tripwire and all of the shenanigans, right? Really the highest and best use of your time as an expert is, in my opinion, to really dial in and refine your high ticket programs. Okay. Your 10,000, your 5,000, your 15,000, your 25,000, your 50,000, your $100,000 programs. You want to spend enormous amount of energy refining that program. That's what I did. I got really hyper laser focused really on dialing in our agency services And after they were dialed in and refined and, made into a diamond, if you will, then I was able to come back and start adding in courses and free plus shipping offers and all of these other things. But if you were to look at it from an outside perspective, you would see, oh, Bryan's launching books and Bryan's launching, he's got a free golden ticket and he's got challenges and webinars and all these lower ticket programs. Understand that I didn't start there. I started with my agency. I started with higher ticket programs where I can build up a library of case studies. I can build up all of the proof that not only do I have results, but I have results for a lot of other people, from people that have no results, no brand, no audience, to people like Tony Robbins who have a massive brand and a massive audience. So I think that will help hopefully shift your direction as you're thinking about, or as you're scaling the expert business, because that's really what it is an expert business. Anybody who's saying go perfect the low ticket, first of all, you're going to run out of money. And so then you're going to end up having to go into another shiny object or go back to work, quite frankly. And that's what happens to a lot of people. A lot of people get taken out because they're focused on the wrong things. It's like, for example, everyone sees, Grant Cardone, or they see Gary Vee, or they see Russell Brunson, pumping out a ton of content through podcasts, right? Well, that's great. That's fine and dandy, right? But you don't do that first. That's not the first thing you do. The first thing you do is you refine your offers. You refine how you're going to sell those offers, which actually leads me to my next point, which is you've got to think about how are you going to sell your offers? Like, how are you going to sell your products and services? Okay, so you got webinars, you got challenges, you've got application funnels to sales calls. I want you to think about it from the perspective of the front end and the back end. Okay, so for example, you've got a book funnel that can lead to an application, which can then lead to a call, right? Or it can lead to a webinar, which leads to an offer. Okay, you can totally go that route. You can go webinar to course, which I do. You can go challenge to course, which I do. You can go sales video to application to call, and then high ticket. Typically, you're going to sell high ticket being anything over 10 grand. You're going to sell it either on a one-on-one call, or you're going to sell it at a live event, being in person as best and virtual being the second runner up, in my experience. Okay. My experience doing this for 17 years, I have seen that play out. Okay. High ticket being over a phone call. That's why you see things leading to an application, leading to a conversation, and leading to an offer, and then a closed sale, right? You can go from application to call, and then call to coaching or consulting or agency or mastermind. And those are funnels that we have. We have almost every single one of those that I just mentioned. But you got to think about for a second, what are you offering? And then how are you going to sell what it is that you have to offer, right? And so that's huge. A lot of people are just throwing mud up against the wall. And if you don't have that process dialed in, you're not going to get past that 7-figure mark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's a hugely important piece to, you have to understand the mechanics of, okay, where are you actually going to sell things? But then a lot of people say, and they might be listening to this and be like, okay, cool, great. Bryan's giving me the roadmap. Now I'm going to go and do it all on my own. I'm going to, sit in my work at home office and I'm going to do all of this on my own. And that kind of runs into another challenge, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I think far too many people try to do it on their own. And I would say, getting out of your own way and trying to do it all yourself is another component here that you've got to understand. And the sooner you get it, the better. 3 years into ClickFunnels being live as a brand generating over $100 million a year, Russell told everyone at the live event, he said, it's about 5,000 people. It's not about what, and it's not about how. Rather, it's about who's in your corner, who's helping you, right? He said, I didn't build ClickFunnels by myself. I got a team of over 200 people that help me. Now, you don't need 200 people to build your business beyond 7 figures. Don't get it twisted. But if you're trying to learn everything, there's just too much to learn. You've got every platform. You've got so many different components. think about it, when Henry Ford was asked about his intelligence, he didn't try to drum up the answer to every question. He said he's got a row of push buttons that he can call on the right person to have the right answer. And that was the smartest thing he could have said. So, it's not about what or how. I think it's important for you to get knowledge. I think that's super important. I think that's why you're listening to this now. You want to get the knowledge so you have the right perspective, so you have the right understanding of what's going on in the business. But you shouldn't be trying to do it all yourself. Mm-hmm. In fact, I don't know a single person that's hit 8 figures or up that's tried to do it all themselves. I don't know a single soul. Yeah. And that's, quite frankly, what most people are trying to do. They're trying to figure out and do it all themselves because they don't think they have the resources to hire someone to help them. Mm-hmm. The reality of that is it's not a matter of resources, but rather a matter of resourcefulness, right? Like Tony Robbins says.
Right.
When you have the vision of something that's going to truly change people's lives and make an impact, that vision can get people behind you, can get people to support you. And there's so many creative, strategic, financial ways to fund projects, right? You just have to think a little bit out of the box than your traditional, well, I don't have it, so I can't do it. And that's just a really limited thinking. That's just really limited thinking. My dad would always say, there's no such thing as can't, only I can and I will. That forces you, if you think about that for a second, that forces you to come up with creative solutions rather than saying, oh, I can't do that, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. In fact, I'm in the middle of teaching my daughter that now because she's taking on that word can't. And so now it's time to erase that from her vocabulary because there's really no such thing as that if you have the determination and the will to find a creative solution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, some people can probably get to $1 million on their own. Most people can't, but you might come across some really talented people, or some people might get lucky and get there. But you don't see people breaking, like running past that point or getting to a couple million on their own.
Yeah. I mean, there's always a special unicorn in the bunch, right? But, and I've seen it breaking, that $1 million mark. Yes. Going beyond that, I'm talking multiple 7 figures or, 10 million and up. Reality is, look at the statistics. Over 102,000 people use ClickFunnels. Less than 100 people have broken through that 10 million plus mark. Now, I know I'm talking about 7 figures. The difference is pretty significant. There's been about 1,000 people that have hit $1 million, but only 100 have broken through 10 million. So yes, there probably are some unicorns in that group that did it by themselves, but you better believe that once they've hit that level, they're trying to figure out how do they up level as fast as possible because they realize that they're the bottleneck in their business. Yeah. Right. Yeah. When you talk about scaling that thing beyond that point, you're going to become the bottleneck. And that's where you have to get smart and strategic on who's at the who's at your table or who's on your bus, right? That's helping you go to that next level.
And a lot of that's about mindset and kind of thinking through things differently. So the last key thing we want to talk about today is this abundance mindset and understanding impact. So let's dive into that.
Yeah. So I think another component, this will be the last component for today, will be what I call having an abundance mindset and really, truly understanding the impact that what you offer provides. Right. And I don't think a lot of people think about that. Like, what is the impact of what you provide? What is the impact of helping other people produce results in your area of expertise? And you really want to think about that. Now, as you begin to serve people and help them produce results, you'll see the impact, right? So the only way that I actually know the impact that I have is by it being expressed. Right. So it's, doing this for 17 years, I've seen it expressed. Right. There's a saying in poker, scared money is dead money. And that's so true when it comes to this business as well. Don't be afraid to invest. A lot of people, they go into advertising with a losing mindset. So if you think you will lose, you're likely already defeated. Right. So if you go in, like I went into Tony Robbins' promotion where I got top 5 on the biggest launch in internet history that generated over $50 million in like 2 weeks. I didn't go with the mindset that I'm going to lose. I went in with a mindset of I'm going to win. I'm going to be top 10. And now there were strategies that went into play there, but I do believe it also was my mindset. And then what I did is I took that winning mindset and I actually applied it to advertising. I applied that mindset so that the narrative of my ads was sending out the same message. Think about that for a second. What is the winning mindset for you to win? Then take that mindset and put it into your campaigns so the market perceives you as a winner as well. If you look at the campaign, that's exactly what we did. And we end up placing number 5, beating out influencers who have, some of them get more than 20 million views on their YouTube videos on a monthly basis, right? I don't have anywhere near that audience yet. I beat them. Well, I would say it was a mindset going in that I'm going to win. No matter what, I'm going to win, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to win. And that's what happened, right? Mm-hmm. So scared money's dead money. You come in afraid to lose, you lost already. So, and I see it a lot. I see a lot of people afraid to invest money and afraid to spend $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 on a webinar or a challenge or a campaign. Okay. Whatever that number might be, right? It might be 100,000, right? Whatever that number might be, put yourself in a position so that you're not scared to lose. Because if you're scared to lose coming in, you're putting that energy into what you're doing. And you're likely going to get the energy that you put into it is likely going to be the energy you get out of it. Okay.
Right. So I think there's people listening that have crushed through that $1 million mark. A lot of legacy builders, they're pushing 10 million. Some of them are over 10 million. But kind of as we bring this conversation, to a close of diving into, okay, the people that we're struggling to break that 7-figure mark, what would just kind of be your final encouragement for that audience who is determined to get there, and they're going to, be ending this episode and hopefully applying some of these lessons?
I think the biggest thing out of all of it is resource up. I think the biggest thing of all of it, if you want to break 7 figures, if you want to break that million, just like I always say, it used to be hard. There used to be a time in my career where it was hard to generate $1 million. There was a time in a year. There was a time where generating $1 million in a month was hard or unfathomable. There was a time when generating $1 million in a week was challenging. And then there was a time when generating $1 million in a weekend was tough, or generating $1 million in a day was hard. But once you've experienced it, then it becomes easy, right? They always say making that first $1 million is the hardest thing that you ever do. And then once you've cracked the code in your unique circumstance, you'll be able to reproduce that over and over and over. That's why you see a lot of people, once they crack that $1 million mark, they start to go on to do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then go and beyond that. Because they've cracked their own code, if you will. Because we all have our own unique offers and our unique audience and our own unique angles and our own unique campaigns, right? That's what makes us different. That's what makes us unique, right? I think the biggest thing is up level, resource up. Put the right people at the table to help you get there. I think it's my best advice for getting off the ground or even scaling. Maybe you're doing multiple 6 figures. Maybe you're doing $250,000. Maybe you're doing $500,000. Maybe you're doing $750,000 a year. Great. The step for you, I would encourage you to think about is how do you need to get the right people on your bus that are going to be able to help you break through those limiting beliefs, break through those limiting factors that are at play that you can't even see, right? Being in the picture, a lot of times it's hard to see yourself. You're in the picture, right? So you can have that perspective from someone who's not only on the other side of the table or who's outside the picture, but has already done it over and over and over again. It's a lot easier to reproduce that result. It's a lot easier to reproduce that outcome. And in fact, that's why I believe that the reason for the self-education industry growth from literally 400 million a day to $1 billion a day, and that's $365 billion a year, is going to be spent, according to Forbes.com, in self-education. I believe that's because people globally are waking up to this idea that they need to find someone who has specialized knowledge, skill sets, and results in an area. They hire that person and they help them produce that result. It's kind of like I just did this recently. I just hired a top level, basically fitness coach who's going to go super deep on my nutrition, on my training protocols, everything I put in my body, when I put it in, what I do on a day-to-day basis to help me, shed 10 to 15, 20 pounds, but also to build muscle, right? So what do? Well, I look around. I look around in the market. Who's the best? Who has the results I want? Who works with people that are like me, right? And I found the guy who's an IFBB pro, which is basically one of the highest levels in the fitness world. He's a natural bodybuilder, and he's got tons of evidence that his protocols, his processes and systems work, right? So I'm going to pay him his high fee because he's got the evidence that I want, right?
Right.
I know he can get me there. I'm confident in that because I see the writing on the wall. And the same thing goes for all of us, right? What's the writing on your wall? Is the writing on your wall is the evidence of other people that you've helped. Does it do the job for you? Does it do the selling for you? At the end of the day, this becomes a lot easier when you have that mountain of evidence where you can point to other people like the new prospects that are coming into your process, right? You have men, you have women, you have young, you have old, you have all different types and shapes of people where you can say, yeah, here's all the people I've helped. Here's all the people I've served. I've helped them to get here. I've helped them to get here. I've helped them to get here. And someone's going to then identify, well, that's where I want to go too, right? I do believe that's why self-education, the whole industry, the expert business industry is exploding. And it's an exciting time to be alive, really.
Yeah. There's so much value packed into this episode, and I encourage listeners, go back and listen to it again. We went a little bit longer than we usually do, but it's because we're kind of identifying what are the steps to breaking that 7-figure mark. And I want to encourage listeners, we have a lot more resources to help you to break that mark and even break that 8-figure mark in the show notes of this episode. So Bryan, this has been extremely valuable, and I'm excited to see what we got on the next episode.
Awesome. Thank you for joining me on Legacy Builders, and I would encourage you to come back to the next episode next week to get more clarity on your journey to launch your expertise online, scale your impact, and build your legacy. If you're ready to get the process started of launching your expertise online the right way, then I recommend go to launchexpertise.com. Or maybe you're at a place where you're ready to really scale your expertise and your impact. Go to launchexpertise.com. There you'll have several options. Number one, you can get a free copy of my brand new book, The Entrepreneur Evangelist, which I share the secrets that have unlocked more than $300 million of results for my clients, my partners, and our own campaigns. You could also join a 33 days of coaching with me that's free, where I give you insights and wisdom on your journey to launching your expertise and scaling your impact over the course of 33 days. And that's worth at least $5,000, but for right now, you can get it for free. And lastly, if you're someone who wants to take the absolute faster, smarter path when it comes to launching your expertise online and scaling your impact, I'd recommend scheduling a call with my team where we can see how we can support you to crush goals and generate 7 or 8 figures yourself in a short period of time. We have more awards than nearly anyone in the entire community, and for good reason. And we would love to help you just like we've helped them. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Legacy Builders.